With the launch of Pose this week, and with figures like Laverne Cox, Janet Mock, and yes, even Caitlyn Jenner at the highest levels of visibility in national life, we would seem to be at an amazing breakthrough moment for the 1.5 million trans people in the United States. But at the same time, the Trump administration has announced a ban on trans soldiers in the military, is considering denying the equal treatment of trans people in healthcare, and has dismissed through Betsy DeVos's Education Department complaints of discrimination against trans students in schools across the country. And that's just the beginning of the backlash list. Joining us to help give a sense of where we are exactly on the equality of trans people in the United States is Raquel Willis, national organizer at the Transgender Law Center. Raquel, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Amara.
I know that you just got back from Panama because I follow you on Instagram. So thank you first on my virtual vacation for your glowing tan and for taking the time to be with us right after you came back. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was great to have a little vacation, but you know, the fight goes on. So here I am.
That's right. It didn't stop just because you left. So one of the things is that it seems as if we are at a dichotomy moment here. And I just wanted to hear you talk a little bit about that, where on the one hand, Pose is launching. It's terribly exciting. It's historic. But we also are at a moment of intense backlash and even violence against trans people in the United States. And so I'm wondering how you are seeing things from where you sit.
Definitely. You know, I'm so excited to see Pose happening and really just in general to see more of our narratives in the media and on TV. Thinking about shows like Star on Fox, right, with Amaya Scott, and of course Orange is the New Black has been on for a few years. So there's so many opportunities opening up for particularly trans women of color on the screens, right? And that's exciting. But of course, with all of that excitement and this burst of visibility, the fight still goes on in our day-to-day lives. And so that visibility has really lifted the veil on really some of the deep-seated issues with how trans people and gender nonconforming people in general are navigating in the United States.
What do you see as some of those key issues that you mentioned for trans people and gender nonconforming people right now in the United States?
Well, definitely we have a president now, Trump, and an administration that is being very clear about their disinterest in advocating for trans people and keeping us protected. And so we've seen with the Department of Education really trying to rescind a guidance that would protect trans students from the Obama era. We are also, of course, seeing the attack on trans people in the military. And then also something that I think is really touching everyone is the issue around trying to push this license to discriminate so that people can discriminate against trans people in healthcare.
At TLC, at the Transgender Law Center, how are you all pushing back against some of these new administrative moves across the board and also at the state level? And how does national organizing fit back into that pushback, your job?
Definitely. So Transgender Law Center has always focused on impact litigation. And so targeting cases that would really push the needle on how trans people are protected in the legal sphere. Within the last 5 years, we have really seen also an importance in pushing resources and power to communities through organizing. And so I've been so grateful to be a part of a very powerful organizing team. And so through our projects like TLC at Song, which is working with Southerners on new ground around money bail and touching the lives of trans people who have been incarcerated and haven't been able to get out of those cages because of intense legal fees and intense bail fees as well. And also work through an amazing project called the Black LGBTQ Migrant Project.
And as you travel the country, how are you finding the response to organizing into trans issues on the ground?
Well, I think that we have to consider that when the 2016 election happened and many marginalized communities were really afraid of what life was going to be like under a Trump administration, since he had already spoken out against people of color, against immigrants, against LGBTQ folks, women, all of these different marginalized categories. Now there has been such a fire behind folks who may have never done organizing before or were just getting their toes wet in the water of organizing. And so it's been powerful to build alliances with folks who are newer to the work and also more of the seasoned folks who have been doing this work for years and years, no matter who, who was in the administration or who was in power.
And I think that that's the essential point here, right, is that the only right that we're fighting for is for human rights and for basic human rights that are grounded in international law and are grounded in the Constitution. There's nothing special about, asking to not be discriminated against by your government, that it's the human rights that everybody is entitled to.
Definitely. And the ways that privilege plays a part in that, right? And so we have to be clear about the history of the United States. It has been one that has prioritized white voices and white lives. It has prioritized cisgender men and heterosexual people. And so it's important now more than ever that we be clear that we're not saying that we want to limit the freedoms that other people have had. We're saying we want to bring everyone up to the same level and up to the table so that we can all partake of this supposedly delicious meal of freedom and equality in this country.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for everything that you do to help make the dream of America a reality. That's what you're talking about. That's what you devote every day to, and we really appreciate it. And thank you again for joining us right after you got back. For more information about the Transgender Law Center and the full range of issues we discussed here with Raquel, visit www.thelastip.org and click on How to Help.